Welcome to NAMM 2016. My name is Thavius Beck. I'm a very hardcore music enthusiast, longtime producer, musician, teacher, etc. And I've been hanging out with my buddies from Elektron for a little while. I've been a very big fan of the gear, big fan of the Octatrack. The one thing with the Octatrack is that it didn't work with Overbridge, so I was a little bit jealous, and I got a chance to play with the Analog 4 and utilize a beta version of Overbridge with one of my favorite DAWs, which is Bitwig. So I want to talk about some of the ways that you can use Overbridge with a DAW and some unique features that we can utilize with Bitwig that we can't use with any other DAW. So first things first, Overbridge is essentially a VST plugin that allows me to interact with the Analog 4 or Analog Rhythm directly within my DAW. So I can treat this piece of hardware as if it's a virtual instrument. And the beauty of that is that you see this is the VST right here, okay? And once I've set up Overbridge, I'll show you the setup screen in a bit, but once I've set it up, I can open up Overbridge directly in my DAW, and I can see all the parameters of every single track directly in this plugin. This makes it extremely useful because as much as I love the Analog 4, the screen makes it a little bit difficult to navigate. I'm kind of used to it by now, but having this makes it so much more just elegant and a lot more visually informative. We're able to see our envelopes. You can see the shape of your filters. You're able to see the shape of your waveforms. And if I go in here, I'm using a Surface Book, so I have a touch interface here, so I'll start touching some things. Going into Overbridge, up here I can see I have the overall kit. So I can look at the kit. I have my performance macros here. I can edit, change the voice routing here as well. I can go to my individual tracks, change parameters for all my different tracks. And again, the way it's laid out is really nice. If we look at the oscillator section, for instance, you have one page for the tuning of the oscillators. We have another page for the modulators here. All right, so we can modulate the pulse width, the speed. We can introduce amplitude modulation, turn on key tracking, and you see all of this visually. So it's just a lot easier to build things from scratch. We have our individual sound mixer for each track here, so I can introduce more delay, chorus, reverb, etc. And I can either play this sound from Analog 4. Right now I'm on track 1. Track 1 has a kick drum sound. I love the analog drums here. I can either play it from Analog 4, or I can play it from a touch instrument here in my DAW. Again, I'm using Bitwig, and I'll just move this over to the side here. How many of you are familiar with Bitwig? Any Bitwig users? Some of you not so much? Okay. Bitwig is similar in some ways to Ableton Live, but in a lot of ways it's not. There's a lot of unique functionality there, and one of the most unique features is having this touch display that works with any touch-enabled computer. And this touch display allows me to use a touch instrument here so that I can play my instruments by simply touching the screen. Now, what's nice about Overbridge is that, again, I open up Overbridge, Analog 4 functions like a virtual instrument in my DAW, and I can use this touch keyboard to play the sounds that I have coming from Overbridge, okay, from my Analog 4. So what I'm going to do really quickly, let me just move this back over here, and I'm going to change the layout so you can actually see what's going on. I'm going to hide Overbridge for just a second. So the way I currently have this set up, actually, you know what, let me bring up the Overbridge settings panel so you can really see what we're able to do. So when you set up Overbridge, you're able to send and receive up to 8 channels of audio depending on your USB bandwidth. And as you can see right here, these are the inputs from Analog 4. So this is what's going to go into my DAW. I can either get the stereo output, which allows me to get any tracks that are playing plus all the effects, or I can get audio from the individual tracks here. So you'll see that when I get back to my DAW. We can also send the output from our DAW back to Analog 4. So essentially, you can use this not only as a virtual synth, but also as an audio interface. I don't have any other audio interface connected. Everything's coming directly from Analog 4. So with that set up, I'm going to close this now. I've seen that. And if we go over here, OK. So what I'm looking at now, these are a bunch of different tracks I have set up. This first track has my Analog 4 VST, the Overbridge VST. I have 4 different MIDI tracks here that are set up so I can send MIDI to the individual tracks in Overbridge. So if you look over here, these are my track parameters. This is going to send MIDI to Analog 4, track 3. All right? This track is set up to send MIDI to Analog 4, track 1. And then I have 4 audio tracks set up to receive the audio from these individual tracks. So I'm able to send MIDI to individual tracks in Analog 4, receive the MIDI on individual tracks, and record the parts individually without using audio cables with one USB cable. So let's get an example. Let's check out how this works. I'm going to go into this play mode for Bitwig. MIDI track 1 has a kick on it. I'm going to go to my second track that has a snare. And I'm simply going to create a blank MIDI clip here. And I'll go inside of this MIDI clip, and I'm just going to lay down a snare on the second and fourth hit of this bar here. Let's see. Put that there. And we'll move this one over here. All right. So I've got my snare playing from track 2 in Overbridge. I'm going to go back to my play screen here. I'll navigate to MIDI track 1. Track 1 is triggering a kick in here. And I want to make sure I don't have too much latency going on. Bitwig automatically turns on something called plug-in delay compensation. If I turn that off, I can minimize the amount of latency that I'm getting. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. And, oh, that is off. OK, perfect. All right, so let's go ahead and play this again. I'm going to turn on my record quantization. That's on. All right, so when I'm ready, I'll start recording something into this clip. All right, so we got 2 kicks there. Let's see. There we go. So the beauty of record quantization, it'll correct any timing mistakes that I've got. I'm going to move down from track 1. Track 2's got a snare. Track 3, I have a hi-hat sound on here. Now the thing is that using this as a virtual instrument, I can combine the MIDI effects in Bitwig with the sounds that I have here. And what I'd like to do is trigger this little hi-hat sound, maybe use an arpeggiator so I can hold it down and play it in a rhythmic way. So I'm going to add a MIDI device here. And let me see. If we go into our note effects there, and I want the arpeggiator, so I'm going to add that. Hit OK. So this is Bitwig's arpeggiator. And if I hold a note down, I can get that to repeat. But what I really like about this arpeggiator, I can change the velocity and the gate time for each individual step in the arpeggiator. So I'll hold this down, and I'm going to start manipulating certain things here. Let's see. There we go. It's being a little finicky right now, but it's all right. That's how beta things work. All right, so if I create a clip now, and I'll go into my edit screen here. I'll add a note, and I'll have this note sustain for the whole bar here. Let's see. Just grab my, put that there, and let's see. There we go. Stretch this note out. All right, so now, so we can hear the arpeggiator affecting that. Go back to my play screen. On my fourth track, I have a synth sound. So I'm going to record something with this as well. When I'm ready, I'll give this MIDI clip. So I've got 4 different clips. These are all MIDI clips that are triggering sounds in Analog 4. Now at this point, if I want to tweak these sounds, let me go back to my Analog 4 VST up here. And if I go to my little play window here, I'll bring this up. All right. So now again, I can go to each individual track that I have in here, and I can start manipulating some of the properties or parameters of these sounds. So let's go to track 4. That's where my synth sound is at. And maybe I'll adjust the filter a bit. Bring the overdrive up a bit more. Maybe we'll add a little bit more reverb here. Adjust filter 2. And you know what? Maybe we can go to our LFOs. My envelopes and LFOs are over here. All right. And I've got two different LFOs. My first one's affecting the filter frequency. I'm going to turn this up a bit. And we'll make this affected every quarter note. Turn the speed to 32. I'll try to. That's close enough. So again, I'm able to affect all of these different parameters directly in Overbridge, but I'm controlling hardware. I'm not controlling a virtual instrument, but I can treat this like a virtual instrument. All right. So there's a lot of different ways that we can use Overbridge. I'm not going to show all of them right now because, again, we're still dealing with pretty early software right now. But I'll show you another way that we can interact with this that I find very interesting. Now, if you look, I don't know how many of you have noticed, I'm sending MIDI to the analog 4 device, to Overbridge. Overbridge is on a MIDI track, and I'm not actually using that MIDI track for any notes. But if I did use that MIDI track for some notes, there's some other things that I could do that are pretty cool. So let me go ahead and stop all these clips. I'm going to bring the analog 4 instrument back up. And again, I'm using this with Bitwig, and I want to show off some unique things you can do with Bitwig that you can't currently do with Ableton Live using Overbridge. And the main thing that I think is cool is taking advantage of this touch instrument. So there's more to it than just touching the notes and playing sounds. You have 3 dimensions of expression control, basically. If I touch the notes and move my finger left and right, I can bend the pitch. If I touch a note and move my finger up and down, I can affect timbre. And timbre can be assigned to anything that I choose. I can also use my pen, and if I push in further, that will affect pressure, which can be assigned to something else. So what I like to do right now, I'm going to go ahead and change this first sound that I have up here on Overbridge. I'll change it to some sort of synth patch. Track 1 is here. I can bring up my sound browser right here, and then I can look at all the sounds that I currently have in Overbridge, okay, or in my analog 4. I also have little keywords here, so I can narrow down what sort of sounds I'm looking at. I think I'd like to go for a lead sound, so I'll select leads. And we'll just go with something basic. We'll go with my saw here, and I'm just going to drag this over to track 1. All right. And let's see, we have this armed. Yes. Oh, you know what? Actually, let's do this. Let's go back to this track here, and we'll turn this up. There we go. All right. Now, what I'd like to be able to do is I'd like to play this instrument, and let me trigger this here. No? Okay. Well, what I was going to show you, we can take advantage of that expression control in Bitwig using a device called Note Mod. It'll basically let me assign these different parameters in analog 4 to the expression control, to the way I'm able to play this keyboard. Okay. Now, I'm not really sure if I'm going to be able to do that right now, but what I will do, let's go ahead and bring Overbridge back up. And I'm going to change this back to the kick drum that it was. And instead, what I'll do, I'm going to record some automation of certain parameters for track 4, for my synth. What's going on, Drez? Respect, man. All right, so let's bring this kick drum back in. I'm going to go and find a kick here. I have a bunch of different analog kicks. Let's just go with this one here. Drop that there. All right. Now, what I want to do is I want to manipulate some things on track 4 here. So let me play this again. And let me see. Oh, that's right. We got rid of our sound. So I'm going to go ahead and just create another drum beat again. Let's go back into our play mode. Go to MIDI track 1. All right, so really quick, we'll just play this scene again. There we go. All right. So I want to affect my synth that's on track 4 here. And I want to automate some stuff. So what I want to do, this is the GUI, the graphic user interface for Overbridge. And this is what it looks like in Bitwig. So I have these little knobs here. And if I expand this, I can actually assign certain parameters to these macro knobs. And the last thing that I touch in Overbridge is going to show up here. And then I can assign it to these macro knobs and use that to automate this sound. So I'm looking at track 4. I'd like to automate this filter. As I adjust that, we see it show up here. And I think I'd like to assign that to this first knob. So let's see. So now this knob has been assigned to control that. We'll have my second knob will affect maybe, let's say, the second filter. So I'll adjust this. And we're going to assign this knob to control that. And I think the last thing I'll do is I'll have my third knob affect the LFO amount. That shows up here, and we'll assign that to this knob there. Oh, wait. There we go. All right. So I'll move this over to the side. And now if I use my fingers, I can affect these different parameters here. Very easily. Okay. And then I can record that as automation into a clip on this particular track. So I'm going to go ahead and arm this MIDI clip in a second. 1, 2, 3, and make sure that we're set to write the automation. All right. So now there's red dots there showing me that I recorded that automation. And if I move this back over here, okay, we'll see certain parameters that are affected in Overbridge that have been automated here. Now, if we had a little overhead camera, I'd be able to show you that these parameters are also being affected directly on the unit. So, hey, what's up? So it's not like we're just looking at this and this is operating alone in a vacuum. Everything that we see adjusted here is also reflected directly on the unit. So you have that one-to-one correspondence. If you adjust something here, it'll show up there. So for instance, let me go into my envelopes here. I'll select amp, make sure that I'm on track 4. And let's say if I want to adjust the release time of my envelope, as I'm adjusting that on the unit, you see that being adjusted here. If I reduce the sustain amount, which would be right here, again, you see that instantly reflected right there. All right? Now, again, there's a lot of other ways that we can use Overbridge. We can send audio from analog 4 directly to our DAW. We can also send audio from our DAW directly to analog 4. Now, I'm not going to show that off yet because it's a little bit rough still, but we can use the effects in here, the chorus, delay, and the reverb, and we can actually route individual tracks in our DAW to the tracks in analog 4. So we can use these nice, lush-sounding effects, but still utilize our sounds within our DAW. So it's a really, really nice combination of hardware and software. And that's essentially the gist of it. But ultimately, the main benefit of it, the reason why it's so unique, we're sending up to 8 tracks of audio over USB. That's it, nothing else. And this allows us to use this analog synth, very lush, nice, full-sounding analog synth, as an audio interface and also as a virtual instrument within our DAWs. This is something that hasn't really been done before. And when you get a chance to really play around with it and just see the possibilities, it's pretty impressive. So I've been having a lot of fun with it. And again, using it with Bitwig, I can actually touch the interface. And that just gives me another way to interact with my device. So that's pretty much the gist of it. I'm going to be showing some more stuff at 3 p.m. when I do another demo later on. So if you guys want to stop by, I'll try to figure out something else cool to show you. But hopefully you can understand why Overbridge is so unique and so powerful. So thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it, you guys. And I'll be back at 3 p.m., so stop by if you want to know some more.